What's going on, everybody? My name is John Stamper from John Stamper Media, and very excited to be spending some time with Ian Schwickard, who is a sales account executive at Scopic Software. Ian, it's so great to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're excited about this learning series, AI Innovations, Digital Health, and Business Transformations. I'm going to be spending time with a lot of the great team members at Scopic Software. I think one of the things that I was attracted to with Scopic is they are all over the world. And so very fascinating that we can pull these minds together in one space for this learning series. I think most importantly, have them share with you how they're helping businesses build custom software, but more importantly, do it in a very unique way. Especially in this learning series, we're going to have them share with you like how to build AI into your custom software, their experience in this space, and all that good stuff. So, Ian, I thought maybe a great place for us to start would be to maybe have you share a little bit about your focus at Scopic Software, like who you're helping, what area of the business you find yourself working on in a weekly basis.
Cool. Well, so I started at Scopic actually as a software project manager. So I was down in the trenches with the developers, the QA, the designers from start to finish. Um, I was assigned an orthodontics client, and we've been able to help grow that business just by identifying all the problems within that and taking it from there and attacking that one problem at a time and actually making the business work better. It went straight um, an implementation of software to a full-blown AI project, which improved workflows and actually helped the end customer as well as the client themselves. Day to day, I'm now doing consultations on sales just because I can understand the broader scheme of things. Um, from that perspective, I've got a wider view of clients. So not just orthodontics. We work with a lot of FMCG. We work with other AR projects, insurance brokers, banks, you name it, it's there. Scopic tries to cater for all types of businesses.
So, Ian, you and I met last year at a dental conference as you're talking about working in the orthodontic space. And one of the things that really caught my attention, and you said it, which is there are a lot of companies in dentistry, in orthodontics in general, that are wanting to build customer software. But along the lines, not only did they want to have a platform for those that they're serving, but then this whole AI wave kind of came into dentistry and the world, really. And so now that's a big component of these organizations doing that. And I think what's exciting in dentistry, we have had so many innovations with technology and just the patient experience as a whole. But it sounds like, Ian, like with the conversations that you're having with a lot of these companies in dentistry, is they too want to have a platform, a way to communicate with their current customers and all of that, like and to do it in a more innovative way. And we're going to get into AI today, but more importantly, like how these companies can utilize AI. But what has that been like? Like, talk a little bit about the excitement for these orthodontic companies and just their commitment to want to making sure that they have an up-to-date platform that they can use to communicate with their customers.
So you hit a very good point there about how exciting the industry is because it has been evolving as we go, and we tackle one problem at a time and we just find new problems that are ongoing. So there's not a lot of standardization across the industry, which kind of makes things a little bit difficult, like from the types of scanners that you're using, um, even to the formats of the scans that you're getting. I mean, you name it, there's probably about 60 different companies that across the US alone that um, people are using their scanners to actually scan people's teeth. So challenges like that, when it comes to using AI, um, you need some standardization across the board to actually use that. And that's getting back to the data. Is the data correct? And can you use it to overcome a challenge for the AI? That's probably the biggest thing that we've had to try and actually work on over the last year, maybe even two in the AI space. Um, I mean, my client that I'm talking about specifically, they were traditional um, learning algorithms, not AI per se, but now we've implemented actual deep learning large language models on the specific AI. I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. And I think it's a great segue to the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is there is the world of AI for all of us where we tap into like a chat GPT or any of these other tools that we've all used independently. And then as you know, Ian, that's accessing data from the world that exists as it is. Now let's distill that down into an individual company, and the company wants to build, this AI tool like into their platform, their site, their database, all of that. And then I'm sure you have conversations with them and say, that's great. Like we can do that. But then the very next question is, what data do you want to use? Where is that data? How are you going to use that? Because like you mentioned, in order to make it work the way that they want it to work, it does have to come from an aggregation of their own data, their own, IP, like the things that they are valued for in the marketplace. So let's go there. Talk a little bit about initial conversations you have with companies when they say, okay, Ian, we know that we want to have Scopic help us. We want to build, a new site or a new platform, whatever the case may be, and we want to build AI into it. What are some good starting conversations for these organizations?
So I think the first part is to maybe break it down into steps. So within the workflows that we've got in the orthodontic industry, we go through steps where we first have to do take the scans. We need to segment those scans into individual teeth. And then from there, you need to start doing things like removing excess tissue, and then identifying those teeth with AI. And then from there, you need to do specific markers on those teeth and trying to get all of that data consistent across all of your data is quite challenging. But definitely break it down into steps, try and isolate one portion at a time, tackle that, and then go for it. It's like, I'll compare it to a movie. I know this might be a little bit of a reach, but in terms of Hollywood right now, it's really easy to make a bad movie. And that's why you don't see great movies being made, because it's easy to do a bad movie. To do a great movie, it takes a lot of hard work. And this is where we're using good data to make great work happen. And again, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a good comparison of just because you have the tools, just because you can build something, does that mean that you should? I think in the case of the movie, which is maybe where you were going, is that the movies that touch us, that do well, are great stories, right? They pay a lot attention to detail of the story and connecting with the audience. And in the case of a business, you're right. It's you can use any tools that you want. You all can develop different things for companies, but where the rubber meets the road in a lot of cases is the data that they have, because as you mentioned, that's how they can be productive to those that they want to serve. So, all right, so let's move forward then. So you've had some of the initial conversation. Let's say that a company has aggregated valuable data that they can use. Where do you take them next?
So next steps would be to analyze the data and start actually training a model based on what outputs that we need to get. Obviously, we're going to need some benchmarks from the subject matter experts, which we lean quite a lot onto the actual businesses that we consult to. With regards to that, it's very important. Without us being able to measure those outputs, we're not able to do anything with it. Once we do actually have a model in place where we can get a similar set of data output from what we've tested against, we would then fine tune that model in terms of its accuracy and the temperature of that model.
So let's talk a little bit about orthodontics specifically, because I want to make sure that those, at least that I connect with in dentistry, learn more about Scopic and the work that you all are doing, and those that you've helped. Can you speak to how you've been able to help some of the orthodontic companies, and more specifically, like what problems they were looking to have you solve for them?
Cool. That's actually an excellent question. So I'm going to answer it from the companies that we help. I'm going to answer it from the orthodontists that we've helped, and then the patients. So it's a three-parter to that. So the first part, I'll say, from the customers that we help, we improve workflows. From that perspective, if a technician is working on a single case and they're spending 14 minutes on one single case, if we can use AI to employ or to do the standard procedures that are quite menial, and we can reduce those 14 minutes down to 3 minutes, we've got a heck of a saving when you start dealing with 4,000 or 5,000 cases a month. Obviously, this is reducing staff costs. You are able to scale a lot quicker, and your workflows are improved. So although the investment of the AI could be quite large, the long-term benefits of it are quite beneficial from the customer perspective. Now, from the orthodontist perspective, what really matters to them is bums and seats, as if they can see, rather than seeing 2 patients every hour, they could probably see 5 patients per hour, which from an orthodontics perspective, that's excellent in terms of growing their revenue base. Now, from the actual end user perspective, we've got reduced errors, we've got improved healthcare or predictions of orthodontics and how it can actually shorten the lifespan of using orthodontics. From that perspective, everyone wins. So it's the customer, the end customer, the actual orthodontist, and the platform that we are pushing the AI through.
And when you've worked with some of these orthodontic companies, can you talk a little bit about their involvement? I mean, you mentioned kind of at the onset the importance of working with all of you to understand the data, pulling all that together, where it's at. So obviously there's some involvement there, but then once that's determined, love to have you share with everybody kind of what the rest of the process looks like in regards to like how much time they need to spend working with all of you to really design the world that they want. And as you mentioned, to accomplish all those things that you spoke about, right? The win for the company, the win for the patient, like all of those that are involved. What is their involvement in working with all of you?
So with my specific client in mind, it was very hands-on. So I was dealing with the CTO/owner of the company, almost on a day-to-day basis, discussing different results, how it should work. Although he's not a orthodontist himself, he should be one. He knows more about occlusional markers than most orthodontists would ever know. He's given many talks on it, internationally on it. From that perspective, a lot of back and forth where we work together. It's more of a collaborative understanding because he needs to teach us what he knows for us to empower us to help them, if that makes sense. Obviously, this extends outside of orthodontics, but this is just the one area that I've been privileged enough to be in.
I guess the great question is after you went through this process, did you feel comfortable like you could be in the orthodontic space and working in practice? Because I'm sure it was very, a lot of fun, right? To learn about this, to tie it all together. And that was kind of where I wanted to go next is, as you go through the process, you get this built, they start to see what their own data can look like and how it can help their workflows and all of that. What is some of the feedback when all these pieces come together, Ian, and they actually start to see the magic of the custom work that you do for their business?
So there's a lot of magic across the board on it. From that perspective, like I knew nothing about orthodontics when I was assigned it. Luckily, before the actual AI work started, I was involved in the workflow of just normal case management. So I had a sort of not a sort of. I had a very good idea on what the workflows were. We just needed to improve them using AI. I think in terms of minimizing the time for each of those cases, definitely that's where the huge magic comes from. But it's also from a computing perspective. We try and reduce the amount of resources specifically used from not only from a human side, but from a technical side as well. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I wanted to kind of have you, share some of that because a lot of times I feel like organizations, they know and understand the importance of having custom software. Some scenarios, I'm sure, where you've worked with organizations, maybe they've had a situation in the past where things didn't work the way that they wanted to. And so, I mean, I'm always, very curious, from your perspective, a company like Scopic, when you get to work with a new company, like how you set the expectations, how you educate them to maybe, in a lot of cases, I'm sure you have to undo maybe some past experiences they had with custom software to instill that positive energy that like in working together with all of you and then actually taking the time to detail all this out that you can get the end result on the other side. I'm sure that's a big part of it. So like, yeah, I mean, talk about that a little bit and part of that, consultative nature of guiding them along, holding their hand to make sure that they can get from point A to point B, which is the completion and the commitment that they put into this. They get what they want on the other side.
Yeah, like you said, it's definitely part of it. A lot of it is trust. Luckily, from my side, the relationship was already built before I was introduced into the team. Um, Again, long-standing client. We've been there since the inception of the software that they've created. So software development is never about there's an end goal. There's always ways to improve. It's continuous improvement, fixing this, tweaking that, adding a label here, text updates. It could be how long is a piece of string, and it's definitely about trust and getting those expectations out there to the client before they say yes, let's do it. So from an AI perspective, a lot of the time it's going to be is it possible? There should be some research done, be it a discovery phase where we go and inspect different ways of doing the methodologies for the specific AI that we're going to do. Or it's going to be a full-blown proof of concept where we can just see it work from a high level and then refining it going from there.
I'm so glad you mentioned the reality of the software process. I've been there myself, and I do wish along the way that people would have shared with me what you just shared, which is it is almost like always the first draft, right? It's like it is one of those things that's always evolving, which I think makes it even more imperative that when you're a company out there that you work with an organization where you feel like you mentioned, Ian, that trust from the beginning, that understanding. The other thing I wanted to ask you and maybe have you share a little bit is your own experience. In other words, let's flip this around. You look at your own organization, Scopic, right? And just maybe share with everybody why you love being there. Like, in other words, like, and it's never easy, to be in your shoes. You're out there, you're working with these customers, trying to paint this vision. And then you got to go back to your team and you got to make sure that they can execute on it because you're can tend to be that middle person that is, having that communication. So what has that been like for you to kind of know that, you work with a client, you go back and you start working with your Scopic team, that you have the confidence and this trust that they're going to build something that's going to help that client get what they want?
Yeah, within Scopic, it's really important for me to actually love what I do, and I do love what I do. Is to help finding the end or finding the solution for the client and making it work for both parties. I love what I do inside Scopic. I love the teams that are inside here. I trust them. I've worked with a number of them for a number of years, and we always try to deliver our best all the way through. Um, if there's a speed bump in the road, we generally need to divert. we make sure that it happens early rather than later. But again, I love what I do. I love working with the team. We've got some great leadership behind our overall team. We've got Tim, who's our CEO. We've got Mladen, who's our CTO. I could not ask for better leadership from our teams.
Yeah, I love that. And I also, as we wrap here, I just wanted to have you share, this is more of a set the stage properly question, which is, you're a company out there, you have been in the market to want to get, a custom software build for your organization. You really understand how important it is now to get AI built into this. So you've got to find an organization that knows that, trusts that, works with these models. What are a couple of things, Ian, that you would say to a company out there that is in the discovery phase, maybe almost like a little mini checklist of some things that, you could, will help them be successful, right? I mean, again, I've been down this path. There's a lot of things that I learned along the way where like I look back and know that there's probably some things that I could have done to help an organization like Scopic, as I kind of went into this relationship. What are some things that you could share that would be beneficial for a company out there, of almost like this little checklist of some things that would make the process and working with you guys that much easier?
Cool. So first off the bat, I'm going to say that a bad brief is a bad brief. You're going to get bad results. If you've got a bigger overall idea, it's better to have that idea and have a discovery call with a technical resource where you can actually flesh out exactly how you want it. Again, because you need to be specific on what you want and how you want it. The how you want it always depends also on the data that you've got. If it's bad data, you're going to get bad results. So usually it's a data set where it's a before and an after. So, and see the differences between them on before and after, and try and replicate it so that you've got good data all the way through. The third thing as well is you need a good team to be able to test this, and you need QA obviously. So that's a big expectation to be set.
One of the things that I also wanted to ask you as well is, as someone who has been in this software space, we were kind of talking about the magic, right? So you talk about the brief, you sit down with the company, they paint their vision. It's the Scopic's team's job, right, to make that vision a reality, and then you start to build. And then, as you know, Ian, in this software world, there's different stages. And so, for example, the client then starts to see a little bit of the painting coming to life. And then maybe they start to see some things that they didn't realize were even possible. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't mention this in the brief, but can you do this? Can you add this? Like, what about this? Could you talk about what that process is like? Because when I look back over my years in software development, like that always comes to my mind. And I've been wanting to ask you this is, how do you manage that, right? Because you don't want to temper the excitement of a client, right? Like once they actually see how Scopic can make this dream become a reality, but then there's the element of, time and efficiency and making sure that you're not adding. Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious on your thoughts on that.
So another great question. And this is a thing that we like to refer to as scope creep. Yeah. Scope creep, although it's not specified inside of the brief or the specifications, there's always nice to haves that can do it. From a project management perspective, from my side, I would always try and help the client as much as possible, but there's obviously always some drawbacks to that. Number one, is it determined as the main MVP of that software? Is it needed? Is it required? Then yes, go for it. Could it be pushed to a second sprint or a third sprint? Then so be it. A lot of the time, some of these things could be just a small text change, when 10 of those could actually start adding up. So it's always important for a project manager who is on the project to be upfront and forthcoming with that information about how it's actually going to impact the long term on these small changes. So our project managers are trained to actually to identify and communicate that at the stage when it's identified. So obviously we do tracking via Jira or any sort of software that does bug tracking, but those sort of items need to be labeled and merged into the software. So it takes time. So yeah, that's the overall of it.
And then have you found that by, at least in your world, focusing in this orthodontic space and the dental and healthcare space, that the more you go through these projects, the more informative you are, right? I mean, obviously there's always going to be some unanswered questions for each new client based on what their business is and what they want to develop and what they want to customize. But I would imagine that, there becomes a little bit of a tribal knowledge that you have in the orthodontic space or dentistry or healthcare in general, where the more that you do that, you're even that much more of a value added resource to them to make those suggestions and to maybe share with them some things that they didn't think about. Cause we've all been there, right? I mean, it happens all the time. I think when you're working in custom software, that there's just some things that you can't always see around the corner, right? You don't know
You
what's going
don't
to
know
happen.
what you don't know.
You don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. And so I think that's one of the things I was really excited. The more I've learned about the work that you all do, your experience, worldwide, being able to bring that to the client before you even get to that stoplight so that you can hopefully, prevent that scope creep, like you mentioned, but more importantly, like keep them on track with the things that they want.
So with that, that's why we always recommend doing a thing called discovery. So, excuse me. Discovery is when we actually break down the project into smaller pieces and we identify what is needed across the project to deliver the entire project. So that would be done by a technical lead as well as a project manager. And those resources generally become subject matter experts on the projects that they are working on, be it healthcare or dentistry or even automotive or other sort of industries. Discovery I always recommend because at least you get an outcome that you can expect without the actual development being completed. You'll get solid, decent advice in terms of an outcome and what they recommend that you should do. And then if you're still comfortable, we can then implement it. If not, you can take it to someone else and actually get them to implement it. That's the whole reason why we try and push a discovery for most projects.
Yeah, super helpful. And again, I know there's a lot more here, but I think this has been such a great overview because, like you mentioned, Ian, that first stage of working with an organization, the discovery, the brief is so important. And I think also, like you shared, that comfort level that they have with all of you, because once you start going down this path, with a custom software company, like you mentioned, you're going to be there along the way. And then you add in the AI component, which I know is always changing. It's always dynamic. And so getting that relationship starting off on the right foot, super important. So Ian, this has been great. Love to have you share with everybody like where they can learn more, like about you, about Scopic, kind of the process. And of course, if you are a company out there that's watching this and you want to learn more about building some custom software for your organization, what's the best way, Ian, for them to go about starting that?
Best way to reach us, scopicsoftware.com. We've got a contact us page. If you're interested in AI, it's also on the homepage to request a free quote. Get in touch, drop us an email as well at sales@scopicsoftware.com, and we can take it from there.
Awesome. I have a feeling, Ian, there are a lot of people that are interested in AI and more importantly, how they can build those models into their own companies. So I'm excited about the work that you all are doing. I'm excited about this learning series and look forward to speaking with more of your team members. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for your time, Ian.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.